Like, you actually have no right whatsoever to talk about what you think animal rights organizations should be doing if you yourself are paying for animal cruelty and abuse. It's like absurd. Like, they act like, oh, all of a sudden they care about the, couple thousand dogs that are euthanized by these shelters, but then every single year they're participating in an industry that kills over 80 billion billion. It's like, you are confused, sir.
So what is wrong with fur farming?
Everything. Oh gosh, what kind of question is that? I think that's what gives us vegans this rep of being militant and very over the top and unrelatable, because we're so passionate about getting this message out there, really by any means necessary.
Welcome to the Plant Fueled Podcast with me, your host and vegan nutritionist, Callum Weir, where we're diving into the dynamic world of animal rights activism with the incomparable Jamie Logan. Jamie is not just your average activist, she's a force of nature, blending humour, personality and passion to drive change and challenge the status quo. In today's conversation, we're peeling back the layers of Jamie's remarkable journey, exploring her tireless efforts to advocate for animals and create a more compassionate world. From her bold protests against fur farming all the way to the dairy industry, Jamie fearlessly tackles the tough issues both on the streets and in the media. But Jamie's activism isn't just confined to online. She's a multifaceted powerhouse with a plethora of talents, whether she's starring in the movie Next Girl, managing initiatives for Gen V, or captivating audiences with her own show, Jamie's Corner, and Just So You Know podcast, which she co-hosts alongside Justine Adorno, which is a PETA production. She's always at the forefront of the movement, using her platform to amplify the voices of the voiceless. In our conversation, we delve into the highs and lows of Jamie's activism journey, from the exhilarating moments of triumph to the challenges of facing backlash and criticism. We even touch on her unforgettable encounter with Piers Moore and explore the strategies she employs to engage their hearts and minds in the fight for animal rights. Jamie is more than just an activist, she's a genuine soul with a relentless drive to make a difference. It's been an absolute pleasure to sit down with her and hear her story, and have no doubt that her insights will leave you inspired, enlightened and ready to join the movement for change. Before we dive into this electrifying conversation, I want to extend my deepest gratitude to you, our listeners. Your unwavering support and dedication, your passion fuels my mission to advocate for a more compassionate world, one episode at a time. So if you enjoyed today's discussion, please consider sharing this with a friend and leaving a review or a rating on your preferred platform. Your feedback helps us reach more people and spread the message of compassion far and wide. So let's dive in. Jamie, welcome to the Plant Fueled Podcast. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
It's no worries at all. So at the moment, you seem to be exploding everywhere at the moment. Like everywhere I look, you're there, which is amazing to see. So with your activism obviously reaching more and more people, you're actually using your humor and your personality to actually get through to people and, motivate great conversation. And obviously you're hosting multiple podcasts, acting in Next Girl, and obviously the campaign manager for Gen V. But behind it all, who is Jamie Logan? For the people that are listening today, what do we need to know about you to know who you are today?
I'm just a girl that loves animals. I grew up with a dog named Daisy, and I am still obsessed with her. And I just, instead of having that compassion only extend to her, it now extends past her to all other species.
That's amazing. I think that literally sums you up completely from everything I've seen. Literally sums you up. Because obviously there must have been a domino effect that's kind of push you towards this activism route as well, which is great.
Definitely. I mean, I grew up in New York City, and from a young age, I was always exposed to a whole array of issues of different backgrounds, diversity. I mean, I think it gave me a sense of always being super open-minded about things. I was always into art, and I love the idea of standing up for the underdog and just doing what's right. And so when veganism came to my attention a few years ago and I started looking into the food system, it just seemed like the most logical thing to do, in a sense that I was just aligning my morals with my actions. And that's really what veganism is to me. So I don't think I ever saw myself becoming an activist per se. I think growing up, I was more just go with the flow, kind of class clown. I didn't really want to cause too many issues or make anybody uncomfortable. But it got to a point where I connected with animal rights so much, and just to see the large scale suffering and to see how everyday normal people contribute to it was shocking. And I just, it comes to a point you have to put aside that comfort to create change. And I stopped caring so much about people's responses or their own comfort over an animal's, literally their ability to live.
I think as well, like as you just mentioned, obviously, like I don't think anybody kind of aspires to be an activist at first, but obviously when people make that change as well, I think the large majority of people are very sad. They have that essence of like depressive nature and anger with that kind of recognition of what's going on in the world and how they've kind of been feeding into it for so long, because it's been such a large part of their lives prior to that.
Definitely. Yeah. I don't think it was something that I grew up ever wanting to be, but it did fulfill what I believe my purpose is here on this planet. And it's funny you say, oh, I see you everywhere and you're doing things, and I appreciate that, but it doesn't feel like enough. As long as there are still animals in cages, I will keep fighting and hopefully reach way outside the vegan community. I know, like, when those bacon comments start rolling in on my pages and the hate starts rolling in, I'm like, yes, I'm reaching the people I want to reach.
You knew you got to the right people when you do get those all steak though, or all bacon though, or you need meat to live comments. I get quite a few of those on like a weekly basis. I'm just like, I know I'm at least reaching the right people, and it's not just the people in my niche. I actually remember the first video I think I saw of you, and it must have been probably about 6-7 months ago. It was actually a video of you dressed as a cat. And your approach to obviously animal activism was so different. It was like very unique and comedic. And I think your approach was more, opening people's minds and filling in those gaps that might have not been in there in the first place, with like a very real personality, which I guess is what makes you a bit different from many other activists that you do see, because like you do see people get real like pissed off with like the cubes, which I also really understand the cubes. Like I think they are beneficial to a lot of people. However, there's so many different ways of doing it, and you've brought that humor, that personality into it. Has that always been that way, or has there always been a bit of like trial and error to see kind of what works?
Thank you. Yeah, it has not always been that way, actually. I think that's how I've always been, and that's my true nature, and that's who I am. And that's why when people ask me what to do for activism, I always say now, do what feels natural to you, because the animals need us in the long run. So you want to be able to sustain whatever you're doing. So when I first got into activism, I think like most vegans, we're very passionate, very angry, conflicted as to how the people we love can participate in such a violent, cruel industry. It's like very overwhelming when you're looking at the facts, the figures, seeing the videos of what's happening to animals. Like, it's just so hard to process and take in. And so I think that's what gives us vegans this rep of being militant and very over the top and unrelatable, because we're so passionate about getting this message out there, really by any means necessary. All of this being said, it's not to knock any approaches. I still participate in disruptions. Often I just crashed the Coach Runway show in New York City a few months back. Like, I think we need to take more of those high risk actions for sure. However, some of the other approaches that I used to have would be really like being super argumentative and not exactly getting the information across in a way that people were listening to me. So maybe some people have a better approach that works for them, and maybe they are like that and it works. It gets people to change. For me, it wasn't working. So I would go to AV TV screens and we show people standard practices of what happens to animals, and we have conversations, and they're very just educational conversations. It doesn't get aggressive. It's very much just using the Socratic message, the questioning method to ask people about animal rights and get them thinking about this issue. So one day, it must have been 2 years ago at this point, my boss at this film company I was working for asked if he could come to one of them and film it. And I was like, yeah, that'd be great. Let's, see how it goes. And I was just being myself, like messing with people. And I like hanging with people. Like I'm a people person. And we came back after the cube and started watching the footage, and we were laughing. We were cracking up. Like one guy tried to show me his raw tuna, and just like my reaction to that was just mean. And he's like shocked at this footage, and that was hilarious. Like looking at his reaction to all of this. And another person went vegan on the spot. Like it was just like kind of cool. So we edited it together into my quote unquote Jamie's Corner style. And it added something new, I think, to the vegan community that you don't see often, which is using humor to get the message across, as you were saying. And I've been creating videos now for a year, as much as I can. I try to go out on the street and speak to people and just try to come up with a creative approach. And I really do have fun doing it. And I think the most important part is that people leave with a positive association with veganism. So if they don't go vegan right on the spot, they'll at least look back on the conversation and be like, well, she has a point. I mean, I kind of get where she's coming from, and it's planting that seed for them to now explore it further on their own. And I've had people come up to me at Cubes years later or like months later and be like, are you Jamie? Because I just want to let you know I've been vegan ever since we spoke. And it was like 8 months ago. And that right there, that's why I do what I do. Or I'll get messages on Instagram and somebody saying, I'm vegan because of your work. And I think it's important as activists that we take that feedback and adjust ourselves accordingly. Because our goal is to be effective in the most effective way possible. So I think people ask me who my audience is, and I want to reach non-vegans, but I think a lot of my audience actually is the vegan community, and the vegans then can take my videos and share it to their non-vegans. And also they can use some of the talking points in their own activism.
Yeah, it's definitely, as you said, like a very unique style, which I absolutely love. And I think, as you say, I think when people do start off, that the majority of that audience is obviously a very, very vegan orientated until it starts reaching to the bigger people, or the bigger picture as such. Because obviously your style is very unique, and much like others have their own unique style as well. Like you've got your Joey Carbstrongs, you've got your Tash Petersons and Earthling Eds and things like that. All have their unique styles that work for them, and not every approach is going to work for each person. Because I don't think I could see someone like Tash Peterson doing the style you do, because I don't think it would work for her. Whereas what she does works perfectly for her.
People say all the time too, like, if I went out in a cow costume, people would run across the street. They say to me, and I'm like, no, just try it. You'd be surprised. I dressed up as a tick, a Lone Star tick a few months ago, and I was biting people in the park. And they were loving it. I don't know. I think it's worth a try. Callum, you should try.
But firstly, where do you even get a tick costume from? That's the biggest question.
People ask me that all the time. I ordered a cockroach costume, and then I added little details to the costume to make it more tick-like. Yeah. That was a fun one. That was probably my favorite one.
I absolutely love that. I know a lot of people, obviously, when they go vegan, they want to, go out and speak about animal rights. They kind of want to get into more of like a bit more activism. And however, there could be a lot of anxiety about going out and speaking to people. And a lot of people don't like confrontation. I don't think anybody really loves confrontation. But also when obviously they don't know where to start, obviously when discussing the big questions around like surrounding animal agriculture, they kind of worry just in case they stumble up and then they're made to look like they don't know what they're talking about. And I feel like, is there any like tangible advice that you could give for somebody that actually wants to, jump into animal activism in their own approach, or kind of even just joining a community of just getting out there and speaking?
Yeah, definitely. So I really, as I said before, I never considered myself to be very politically charged or an activist in any sort of way. And so if I could do this, anybody can do this. And I think the main piece of advice that I would have is just to learn the information and learn the facts. So what I did was I watched a lot of other activists like Ed Winters, Earthling Ed, all the excuses that meat eaters have against veganism, everything from lions and tigers do it, so we should too. Or what if you were on a deserted island? Or what about protein? Or, but God says that we should do it. So like every single argument, and I studied up on how to answer that. And then over time, you just kind of put your own twist on it. And then you just, answer how you would answer. But I think the main thing is that we have to keep in mind as vegans is like, why are we vegan? We're vegan because we have compassion in our hearts for all living beings. So we need to look at meat eaters not as our enemies, but as our allies. And so every single person that I come into contact with, I'm not trying to fight them. Like, in fact, I have compassion in my heart for them and I'm rooting for them, truly. And I think they see that. Obviously there's some people that I come across that are extremely argumentative, but I try my best to just compose myself and not yell back or be rude. Or you have to understand that this is decades of deep social conditioning that most of these people have had, that in 15 minutes, like I can only do so much, but what I can do is plant those seeds. So really just being kind in your approach and using humor, mess with them a little bit if you have to, is what I would recommend.
I think that's like a great way to go about it as well. Because as you say, there is such deep conditioning, especially when you're talking to people that are like, especially over the ages of like, let's say 40. That's a lot of time that they've spent conditioned in that way, and then trying to change that or trying to move away from what they know can be hard. And sometimes for some of them it can be easy, and some people can move away, but some people it's just a large life adjustment.
Absolutely. I mean, it was for me, it was a process, and my one regret obviously is that I wish I went vegan sooner. I really, really wish that the information was available, and I wish that I was more open to receiving it. But human beings are complex. We have this desire to fit in, to be liked. And when you go vegan, you're really standing against the crowd, and you're standing against the quote unquote social norm. And so that being said, not everybody's willing to do that. And not everybody's willing to go out of their way to learn how to adapt a new lifestyle. Not saying that it's hard in 2024, but it is an adjustment where instead of reaching for that turkey that you've always reached for to put on your club sandwich, you instead have to reach for the tofurkey. And so it is making that mindful shift, but not everybody is willing to do that right away. So that being said, I try to keep in mind, that it's a journey, and it's a spiritual awakening, really, is how I see veganism. And so if I could, at the very least, help somebody start to make that connection, that is what I try to do.
I love that. So when it comes to your, when you kind of go out in a cow costume or you go out in a tick costume and you're coming up with these concepts, are you doing this, or like, are you creating these concepts alone, or is there someone else helping you with these? Or is this just a kind of, this is all you?
So it depends on which demo I'm doing. So the cow one I did with an organization called Farm Animal Rights Movement, and they provided flyers, and also they provided the costume. However, I was the one that kind of came up with the idea for it. I said, okay, we're going to talk. They wanted to do something about dairy. So I said, okay, so we're going to do something about dairy. Well, what if I dress up like a cow and I hold one of your signs? And they're like, ooh, we have a good sign. And the sign said, I need to have a baby to produce milk. So do cows, in quotes at the bottom. So then it only made sense that I would dress up as a cow because I'm holding that sign. And I actually wanted to wear this like big blow up, like huge, not super like sexy costume. You know what I mean? And they were like, no, I think it would be way better if you wear this one. And it's like this like sexy leotard cow costume. I'm like, oh, great. Like just what I want to be wearing. But then I thought about it and I was like, all right, I could wear this with tights. Like, it's not super, I didn't feel uncomfortable wearing it once I like had it and put it on. And then I really like it. But that was with them. But the tick idea, that was just me being a maniac and letting my inner weirdness out, I guess.
Yeah, because it was the cow costume, that one where I was like, I saw you, and then I saw a load of people resharing you. I was like, oh, this is, I love this. This is incredible.
Thank you.
But so I think at the moment, I've seen a lot of videos about fur farming, especially from you as well. Your videos lately, and I think people don't realize that there's such a issue with fur, because people don't make the same connect as, if they've made a connection with like meat and dairy, they have no real connection to the fur itself either. So what is wrong with fur farming?
Everything. Oh gosh, what kind of question is that? I mean, using animals in the first place is where the problem starts. In 2024, where we have so many alternative options, we should not be breeding, confining, killing, skinning animals for a fashion statement. I mean, the idea of literally taking a living being that has their own thoughts, emotions, desires, to kill them and turn them into something as vain as a jacket or a bag is absurd. And we should always be asking, if we would not want this done to ourselves or even to our dogs or our companion animals, then why is it okay to do it to any other animal? So fur farming specifically, I mean, besides the ethical dilemma here with the animal cruelty, it also is a really major problem when it comes to disease outbreak. I mean, during COVID, they had to cull and kill millions of minks because of the coronavirus, or there was some type of pandemic or
I remember
outbreak.
that happening. Yeah, that was awful.
Oh yeah, when you confine animals like that, you're looking to cause the next pandemic basically. I mean, it is really absurd. And then not only that, but the environmental toll, the feces, the resources that it takes to feed these animals, to house these animals, it's massive. It's substantial, and we should be taking a look at what sustainable materials we can use instead. I know that there's plenty of vegan leathers and vegan furs and vegan wools that use recycled materials, or that use mushrooms or use bananas and all other sorts of materials that are better for the environment and that don't cause suffering, and also that are cute, that'll give you whatever sort of look you're going for.
Yeah, it's wild to me that fur is still used to this day. It's especially leather as well. Leather, I don't understand. I never really have understood it. Like, it's not the greatest of looks either. Like, it's I don't understand why these things are still so common in 2024. And actually, in fact, more embarrassingly, my dad, when I was younger, I vividly remember him having a coat that basically boasted inside that it was made from a large number of moles. And moles aren't the biggest of animal, and my dad's not the smallest of people. So I don't even want to imagine how many moles were used to create that thing. But even like, I totally forgot about that until very, very recently, and I was like, I'm actually disgusted by it still.
Yeah, it's a shame. It can take upwards of 60 animals to make a fur coat. And it's just, even if it's one animal making that coat, it's not okay. It's condemning another individual to a life of suffering and taking away their existence, their right to be here on planet Earth with us for a jacket that we don't need for survival anymore. So I also think people then, especially now, you're seeing an uproar of people being like, oh, well, vintage fur, vintage leather, vintage moles. It's like, get out of here. You're still walking around the street promoting violence. And nobody knows that your coat is vintage, first of all. Second of all, you can actually donate that fur back to the animals. Like, I truly come from a standpoint of like, it is so disrespectful to like walk around in their skins and their fur. It's like, even if it's secondhand, it doesn't make it all right. And it doesn't erase the violent history of that item. So I really do think that if you have vintage fur, you should look to donating it to sanctuaries or for places that will rehab the animals and that will use the fur to help sick and orphan animals be rehabilitated. There's no need for us to be wearing that at all. It's disturbing.
Yeah, it's screwed up. And I think a lot of people don't realize as well that a lot of these animals obviously no one's farming them to eat them. They're farming them purely for their skin and nothing else. And I'm like, that is such a, like, I don't understand how anybody can be okay with that. Like, I understand with like obviously the conditioning of why people think we should eat meat, but skinning like a small animal just for a bit of like clothing, I'm like, that is more than fucked up.
And it also goes to show our speciesism. As humans, we see some animals worth living, like our dogs and cats. People like whales and dolphins, turtles. But then when you look at other species like minks, when you look at species like salmon, like they automatically say, oh, well, they're not worth living. They're food, they're clothing, they're made for this, right? And it's like, well, actually, no. And if you wouldn't walk around in the furs from your dogs or from your cats, then you shouldn't walk around in the furs or skins of any other animal, because there simply is no difference that actually matters between those species.
Absolutely. And I think saying that, I saw a video yesterday, and I think it might have been on TikTok. And are you familiar with Elwood's dog meat farm?
Yes, I love Molly.
So they saw a load of people using or buying hides, and then they weren't too sure what animals they were. However, they tried selling them dog hide, and they were like, "Oh no, we can't, we can't sell that, we can't buy that." But yeah, these people were selling, I think, fox hide, which relatively not different at all, exactly the same.
Yeah. She went up to them and she was like, oh, I have a canine farm. Would you be willing to buy skins from me? And you just saw the guy be like, wait, like dogs? What do you mean? What do you mean? And it's like, yeah, canines. Like, you're okay with shooting coyotes? Like, they're canines too. But what's the difference between that and a Labrador retriever? And I think people just see the difference is that Labrador retrievers are, you know, they're more docile in the sense that they'll come up to you, they'll treat us with kindness. But it's like, since when did an animal's behavior towards us guarantee them the right to live or not? I mean, that is absurd thinking and behavior, and it just shows the selfishness of human beings and entitlement.
It's wild that people they are from the same kind of, you know, species as well. They're just kind of a different umbrella term of like canine, and I'm like, they're exactly the same thing. Like, I don't understand why there is specific standards for some animals and some not. And I understand that obviously people are like, oh, but these things live in our houses. I'm like, I couldn't care if they live in your house. They're still an animal.
Yeah, exactly.
And then there was, I think one of the installations I saw was your Grand Central Station one as well, which I think didn't end in arrest and a fine.
Yeah, unfortunately, that was not ideal. But the art installations that were being done around the world, it was to show the truth about the dairy industry and tell it from a human perspective. So we call it an art installation because these demos were happening all around the world, where women would stand in public places with tubes attached to their breasts with gallons of quote unquote milk. And it was to show like a human milk factory, and just like how messed up it would be if this stuff were happening to human beings. And so we decided to take this art installation to New York City. And being that back in, what is this, January, I guess at this point, it was 20 degrees outside. We were like, oh, well, let's do it in Grand Central Station because there's going to be a lot of people there. It'll make for a great photo op. And then also when they ask us to leave, we'll just leave, but freedom of speech, we were thinking, well, no, actually train stations have their own they have their own rules. So we went, it was me and it was five of us. There was 3 girls, including myself, that were like the milk producers, and then one woman named Rachel played the farmer, quote unquote, and then there was one downed cow that was like on the floor, and it was like an abstract looking art piece, and we had signs that said milk is not humane. And we got, amazing attention in like the couple of minutes before the cops got there. People were gathered around us taking photos. Our photographer got some amazing photos and videos. And then the cops came over and they were like, you girls need to leave. And we were like, okay, we'll leave. So as we were like packing things up, apparently we didn't leave fast enough. And then next thing you know, we were in handcuffs. And honestly, though, I'm like, well, that is not something that I would want to get arrested for. I'd rather like get arrested for something like saving an animal or, something that's actually worthwhile. It did draw attention to it on social media, which I think helped our message spread further, because then a few weeks later in my email inbox, I got a email from Piers Morgan Uncensored asking if I would go on his show. So I think there might have been a connection there. Like, it only seems like that would be the case because after the post went viral on social media, especially in the UK, his team reached out to me. And it just goes to show that that was an opportunity to speak about the message further. And so when people say, oh, vegans are always doing these weird actions or these weird demonstrations, my answer to that is like, well, how do we get media attention? We have to.
And I did see the Piers Morgan interview, and to be fair, you actually survived the worst thing that came out of Britain, because that guy is the worst thing that we have. And also well done, by the way, because like not many people actually manage to actually get that point across on his show, because he does like to talk over people, he does like to interrupt, and he does like to kind of degrade people as much as possible. But you actually managed to get a quite good point across without him. Well, he was still trying to interrupt, but you got what you needed to across as much as possible.
Yeah, that's what they do for his job is to throw you off, and his job is he wants to get views, and he wants to be a little argumentative, but I just tried to keep in mind the optics of it. Like if I started yelling back and getting all mad and angry, like people would focus on that as opposed to the message. So I really just kept it to my talking points. I was like, let's talk about animals having their throats slit. Let's talk about animals being forced into gas chambers. If you want to talk about health, let's talk about how top athletes are vegan. If they can do it, you can too. Like really just trying to keep it short to the point. And I didn't know how long I would have. So I really just tried to get in like things where I could, but it was only like 5 minutes. And I was told that I would have at least 15 minutes. So hopefully they'll invite me back on and I can do a little bit of a longer segment. But I think he was starting to get nervous because he knew that I knew the facts and I knew my shit. So I don't know if he probably did. He was trying to throw it over to Tommy Lahren, the farmer woman that was on there, as much as he could. And then giving me 30 seconds to answer.
It was a great thing that obviously like you brought up, like that obviously these athletes and like people can thrive on a plant-based diet at a very high performing level, and he was just saying they were outliers. However, like there's not only just a few of them, there's thousands upon thousands upon thousands. And then obviously had to kind of throw in the kind of insult of never seeing a healthy looking vegan.
Yeah, and it's just like that's another example of it going to show. It's like, well, you are one to talk, Pierce. You want to talk about like healthy looking vegans? Like you are the last person that should be judging somebody about the way that they look and their health. And I didn't even have to say anything about that. I think the silence is actually what, made his point look so stupid. And so yeah, let the us sitting there speak louder than my words, you know. I think I look
Yeah.
healthy. I'm fine. I'm very normal, average weight. Um, my blood work is great. Like, I don't know what else you want from me.
Yeah, like I just feel, yeah, I feel like he does like to kind of throw in insults every now and then, but obviously he is one of probably the most hated people in Britain anyway. So, which
Yeah.
is where I'm originally from, which is yeah, it's nice not to see him on my TV every morning.
Oh,
But yeah, I think one of the massive things that he did mention was obviously nobody wants to eat vegan. But obviously, if that was the case, we wouldn't still be growing in numbers. You know, we had the biggest veganuary ever. Like the German
yeah.
population is now 50% vegan and vegetarian, and obviously you got athletes thriving. So I feel
Great point.
like his points are very redundant now.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, he's just talking out of his ass at this point. Um, it's yeah. He it's amazing that he gives vegans so much airtime though. Like I almost feel like he's like a closeted vegan in a way. And he's just like on his last little defensive leg and then ultimately he'll switch over. We'll see.
Yeah, he's been vegan the whole entire time.
Imagine. God.
I would love that. I would absolutely love that. So with the I one that I did see was the Coach fashion show.
Mm.
Um, Jumping up on stage, Matt, that was that nerve-wracking just to jump on stage on like a just a giant like catwalk.
Yeah, I crashed the New York City Coach fashion show to protest leather with two other women. One woman was body painted as a skinned animal. She was walking in front of me, and I was walking behind her with a sign that said "Coach Leather Kills." And then our other friend Rachel was filming it. So yeah, it was an action that I was surprised how long we were up on the runway for, which allowed us to get the photos and the videos that we needed, and then the press ultimately to post about it as well. So it was an action that made international headlines, and it got the fashion industry talking about the leather industry, which, in terms of animal cruelty, in terms of sustainability, there's just nothing environmentally friendly about leather. And we need to evolve with the changing times, and we need to switch over to plant-based alternatives. Period.
Yeah, I actually I brought a wallet a few months ago of cactus leather.
Great.
Um, I was like, which is amazing. I love. I didn't realize cactus leather existed. Most of the time, I just have like a little metal wallet thing, just because I don't want any kind of like, what's it called, anim- like I don't want anything that is very much glue, anything that's kind of trying to make it as sustainable as possible, and obviously like a metal little slidey thing is what I wanted until I found cactus leather from a little farm in Mexico, and I was like, this is incredible. I love this, and like as much as I'm not a fan of like leathery looking products, I was like, I do want to obviously support this business, so I've got this little wallet somewhere, which is real nice because there's no reason to be using leather these days at all.
Not at all.
It's very no, not at all. Um, another thing that I think people don't realize, and I did see that you did a little protest on which was the coconuts,
Oh,
and I feel like that is a big one that people don't realize at all, that's a thing that goes on, is trained monkeys going up and getting coconuts. Most people
yeah.
assume you've probably got some very underpaid humans going up there and picking coconuts, but yeah.
That was a really, it's an outlier, but it just goes to show the great lengths and the endless ways that humans abuse animals and use animals for our own profits. And the topic here is the fact that Thai coconut milk products oftentimes use monkey labor. So they have monkeys that are trained to climb trees, pick the coconuts, bring them down, and there's rampant animal abuse. I mean, everything from in the training process to the ways that they are kept to the injuries that they endure. It's just a horrible, horrible industry. And what people that are fighting against this issue are trying to say is that now there's so many other alternatives. Like you could get hydraulic lift elevators, which humans can be paid to go up and with elevators pick the coconuts, or you could plant dwarf coconut trees where nobody has to go up there and climb them, or you could get paid human labor, people that are consenting to doing this, as opposed to enslaving monkeys. And so I participated in a PETA demo where we are specifically asking Whole Foods to drop these Thai coconut milk products where we know for sure that these products come from places that involve monkey abuse. So we went into a Whole Foods and dumped 300 coconuts in their lobby to try to get it some attention and to disrupt. And it got a little aggressive, but nothing compared to what the animals are going through. And it definitely got some media and whatnot. And this campaign has been going on for a couple, I want to say, years.
Yeah, no, I think as well, like PETA as well. How do we pronounce it? Is it PETA? Is it PETA? I think wherever you are in the world, it's pronounced slightly differently. But they get such a bad rap, and I appreciate them so much. However, because I think when I first heard them, I may have been about 15 years old, which is going on maybe 17 years ago, because I bumped into a girl that was wearing a jumper with a little cartoon chicken on saying "I'm not a nugget," and it was by PETA, and I was like, I love that, and that's when I first came across them, and ever since then I've always been a supporter of them. However, I feel like they get such a bad rap constantly. There's so much like controversy around them, and most of the time it is just people spreading rumors and stuff like that. However, I'm just kind of like, these guys are trying their best. Like, they're trying to do everything they can. However, people just keep going in on them.
I think it's just people that are guilty that are trying not to take responsibility for their own actions. PETA does amazing work. And the only resistance to PETA is actually propaganda put out by the meat, dairy, and egg industries, as well as dog breeding industries, or really just animal abuse industries that have put out misinformation about PETA. Many people have heard, hashtag PETA kills. And it's because PETA has shelters set up where they take in all animals. They don't refuse any animals. And there's some dogs that are rescued that are either so sick that they can't get better, and so they have to be euthanized, or due to behavioral issues where there just simply is just no way to adopt them out. I mean, they try and do everything they can to adopt them out. So therefore, PETA's euthanasia rates are higher because they're taking in all of these cases. So there's a lot of misinformation out there, and it's like, it kind of goes to show that people will focus in on, those things as opposed to all the amazing work that PETA does, all the animals that they save. And PETA's like just very consistent with their education. They're very much for total animal liberation. They don't want longer chains. They don't want bigger cages. They want animal liberation. And that's where I stand. I don't think it's okay to use or abuse animals in any way, shape, or form, whether it's for entertainment, food, clothing, cosmetics, anything. So they are on that spectrum of like animal rights that's definitely more strong and militant, which is what we need. Like, we need the PETAs of the world. And I also do believe we need the legislators, the politicians, maybe the reducitarians of the world. I think that we need to work together to get to the place of animal liberation.
Absolutely. I really appreciate them, and I have done for so long, and done anything I can to either support them. And I just feel that every time I ever speak to somebody that is normally a meat eater about them, that's when there's like issues coming up, and like as you just said, like saying that they kill, and I'm like, but there's reasoning behind it. It's not just they're doing it for fun. It's not like they're going out. There's has to be a reason for them to do it.
Also, if you're so concerned about PETA killing animals, then why aren't you vegan? Like, you actually have no right whatsoever to talk about what you think animal rights organizations should be doing if you yourself are paying for animal cruelty and abuse. It's like absurd. Like they act like, oh, all of a sudden they care about the, couple thousand dogs that are euthanized by these shelters. But then every single year they're participating in an industry that kills over 80 billion. It's like, you are confused, sir. I don't know what else to tell you.
I can feel the passion right there.
Oh yeah. Like, seriously? Like, now you're all concerned? Like, okay, maybe if you're already vegan and then you want to speak up about ways that we can be more impactful or ways that we can save more lives, then yeah, I'm all for hearing that. But like, don't you dare come out animal rights people that spend their whole lives fighting for this cause, and say that they should be doing it differently. It's like, we're trying to save animals from you.
Literally that. I think so. In past episodes, that I've very much spoken very much about, veganism culture, veganism and religion, and veganism and many other topics. But there's always one that I haven't actually delved into, mainly because I feel like for two guys, if I've been discussing with two and it's two guys, I feel like it's wrong for me to be discussing it, and that would be obviously the one argument that always arises, and I feel like it needs to be touched upon, and is that obviously, can you be a feminist and obviously drink milk? Can you be a feminist and eat meat? And I obviously I completely agree. I don't think you can.
I don't think you can, and the reason is because if you are for equality and you are against the female race being taken advantage of and used in ways that are just unspeakable, then you would certainly be against the dairy and the egg industries. And the reason being is that the dairy industry is a rape industry. They actually have a rape rack, is what it's called, industry standard term, where they artificially inseminate cows, take their babies away, milk them for all it's worth, and then in the end they all end up slaughtered, the mothers and their babies. And the egg industry is no better. The females are debeaked, they're kept in sheds or crates their entire lives, and the male chicks will never see the light of day, and because they're no profit to the egg industry, they are just ground up alive first day of life. So it's just like, if I were to talk to a feminist, I would like to ask them, like, whose breasts are you exploiting and drinking from? Like, whose ovaries are you stealing eggs from? Like, I think it's one thing to note that people actually are just uneducated and might not be aware. And so maybe somebody really is truly a feminist and they fight for equality and female rights, women's rights, but they just don't know about the dairy and the egg industry. That I can understand. But it's like, once you know better, you do better. And so that's why it's up to us as activists, people that are very informed about these topics, to spread the word and to get it out there, because the advertisements put out by the meat, dairy, and egg industries are so good at convincing people that something humane happens in the process, or that we have happy cows and free range chickens. Of people just being uneducated, I think it's possible. And so I don't want to discredit somebody's work that they might do in the women's rights movement. They might do a lot of really great work, but they should extend that compassion and empathy to all females.
No, I completely agree with that, and I think, yeah, like when it comes to people that are misinformed, they're obviously, we know that the large majority of the world are, but for people that are very aware of it, and can call and do call themselves a feminist, and obviously still drinking milk and still consuming eggs, then I think that is, you're very hypocritical on what exactly you're kind of fighting for. Like, if you're very aware of everything that's going on, why are you still doing this just because it's a different species to you? Like, I just don't, I can't get behind that logic.
Absolutely. Yeah, it really is so true. And even if they're a different species, like, let's say this were happening to your dog. People get so freaked out if you were to offer them dog milk. But why is cow's milk any different or any more normal? The only reason it's quote unquote normal is it's because it's been normalized. because many people have participated in drinking it.
It's such a screwed up little place that we live in at the moment, but it is slowly changing for the better. And obviously, things are the movement is moving forward, and people are becoming more aware. And obviously, it is growing. It's taking its time.
Exactly. Yeah, it's frustrating. And I think as activists, that's why it's important for us to focus on the victories. And even if it's like a small one, like getting a designer to drop fur, or rescuing one single animal, it's like those are victories. You're changing lives and you're making an impact. But looking at the broader scope of things, it can be an uphill battle. It really can be depressing. But I think that's why we have to just stay focused, not in fight as a community, and just really use our strengths and our skills to educate and to inspire and to create change for our future generation.
Oh, absolutely. At the moment, you're running 2 podcasts. You have Jamie's Corner, and then you have the Just So You Know podcast. So how did Jamie's Corner get created?
Jamie's Corner was created as a college project, and I was in a class that we had to create our own podcast and a website, and it was really just to help us start to gather a portfolio together for internships. And I was vegan already at the time in college, and so every project that I had, I really tried to somehow make it about animal rights. It was kind of an extension of the activism that I was already doing in school. So I decided to create a podcast called Under the Vegfluence. And the idea behind it was that I would have a few drinks, I would sit with a friend, and we would talk about how just absurd it was that people eat animals and animal products. And it was, kind of just, very casual, using our own personalities and humor to get the message across. And then, of course, I graduated college and I rebranded it. And it went through one other rebrand before it landed at Jamie's Corner, which is what it kind of encompasses my street style interviews as well. So the podcast, Jamie's Corner, can be found on both YouTube and Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And also on YouTube, you can find the street style stuff as well.
And I feel like that's probably was that your form of activism at the time as well?
No, I did a lot of other things. It was really Jamie's Corner podcast is a way that I can get amazing people in the movement to talk about what they're doing. Like Jamie's Corner podcast is less about what I'm doing and more about giving a platform to other people to speak about animal rights. So I'll have people like Stephen Rauch on, who talks about connecting for animals and the importance of connecting and being stronger together. I have doctors and nutritionists on. I have other activists on, business owners to promote, sustainable and cruelty-free and vegan products that they have. So that's what Jamie's Corner is. And then PETA reached out to me, I guess a year ago at this point, and asked if I would be interested in hosting their new podcast, which is called Just So You Know. And that is a podcast where I host it with a friend of mine, Justina Adorno. And we really delve into, I like to think of it as like an investigative podcast, because we delve into different corporations and institutions that exploit and abuse animals, and kind of put their profits over ethics. So we really will like do a whole expose on like the history of animal testing and then what's going on with a specific company and then what we could do about it. We try to offer solutions and actions that people can take.
I've actually got it, or I listened to an episode or so the other day, and I absolutely loved it as well. I think the two of you as well, you bounce off each other so well.
Thank you.
Which is great.
Oh, I love her. Yeah, it's like two friends that are kind of just getting together. Like, it's funny. You're not going to like cry the whole time, like we do take a lot of time to prep for those episodes, because I learn a lot from just prepping for them, because they're really going into specific topics like the coconut monkey industry, who would know that? You know, for the longest time I had coconut milk in my closet and I didn't know it came from monkey labor. So it's just really going into the details of that.
That's amazing. And like, because as you just said, it is just kind of like, you know, two friends like jumping in, having conversations about something, and it's great, and I absolutely love it because like every time I even see a clip on like Instagram, I'm like, I love this. This is just kind of, it just feels natural. Whereas like you sometimes you see some podcasts and it's very much, it just feels like it's being a forced friendship as such. But this, it feels real. It feels like a good dynamic, and yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
I,
Well, when PETA asked me to host it, her and I didn't know each other all that well beforehand. Like we met actually because we were both speakers at National Animal Rights Day in New York last year. And I had her on my podcast. This is like over a year ago at this point, and it was just kind of like an instant flow back and forth. And then when PETA asked me, I was like, well, I think this girl would be great. Like she's really good on camera. We seem to have chemistry. And then sure enough, we started hanging out and now she's like my best friend. You know, it's awesome.
I love that. So there was yesterday, and I think it was on TikTok. I typed in your name on that, and something came up saying that you're an industry plant.
What does that mean?
So that means like the industry has kind of planted you in the middle to disrupt everything.
What?
It's kind of like you know, like obviously big. What was that? Sorry.
You have to send this to me. That's absurd.
Yeah, I will try find it. Yeah, so much like, you know, kind of like big meat companies put in like, you know, like people to kind of like promote meat and stuff like that to kind of you know, what's the word for it? Just kind of like push the agenda. I I will find it. I will find it and send it to you. But someone saying that you were an industry plant, being paid by big vegetables.
Big vegetables? Oh my God. I wish I was being paid. Ugh. I'm a poor activist. I have a Patreon.
Yeah, I will.
That's crazy.
Yeah, no, big broccoli and big almond are funding you completely.
Like, eat more almonds. That's a weird thing is like people are so like they don't realize how much money the meat industry has that they're the ones paying influencers to promote their products because they're so desperate. Like I don't make anything from telling somebody to go vegan. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. If like I always say, I'm like, imagine how much more I could do with a little bit of funding. You know, like I work for Generation Vegan as like a campaign manager. So I do social media and things like that for them. But my Jamie's Corner stuff is on my own. So I'm like, damn, if I just had a little bit of help, the amount of work I could do would be a lot more.
Because what does a day look like for you? Because obviously, I assume everybody thinks you're just on the street constantly, just filming. But I'm assuming that's not your 24/7.
No, look at me. The way you're seeing me right now, I'm at my computer all day. I'm editing. I'm answering emails. I'm like planning out social media for Generation Vegan and answering comments. And I mean, a lot of it is just animal rights stuff in general. But I'm not. It's like I'm not. It's not like I'm out and about all the time. I do like to go eat yummy food because I'm in New York and there's so many good vegan restaurants. So you on my page, you might see me out to dinner a couple times a week. That's a bad habit. I need to be better at cooking more at home, but I suck at it. I'm so bad at cooking.
No, that's the thing. I'm exactly the same here. Because although like I just delve in like, you know, nutrition and like vegan nutrition, however, I live in Sydney, which has such a good array of vegan options everywhere that I'm like, oh, I don't need to eat out today. But I need to. I like there's something new. It's there. So I'm gonna be there a week. Like I need it.
Right. You know Animal Justice Party? Do you know Louise Ward?
Yeah.
She's a good friend of mine. I love her.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, there's yeah, but she's there's quite a few from the Animal Justice Party, I think, in Sydney, which is incredible. And
Yeah, you guys have
just around Australia, actually.
it's great. Yeah, it's awesome that you can actually be part of politics and have a voice, you know?
Yeah, which I didn't realize this prior, because obviously in London, that's not really a thing, and over here it is. Whereas I don't think it's overly a thing in America. Apart from you had, was it like the mayor of New York was a vegan, or it was someone in New York that was like a higher kind of like mayor-ish figure?
Yeah, he's plant-based. I mean, he's implemented great programs, but he's not going in there and banning the horse carriages and like things that we've been trying to pass for years. He's just, he's made headway and I am appreciative of that, but there's still a lot to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah.
whereas yeah, I think over here you got many of the Animal Justice Party fighting, and they are in like Parliament and they are speaking up. We've got Georgie Purcell as well, which is
Yes.
she's absolutely incredible.
Oh, yeah. Powerhouse. So great to meet you and other activists around the world that feel the same way about the world that I do and that are fighting and doing everything that you can. So thank you.
Yeah, that's no worries at all. I am going to wrap this up. However, where can we find you if we want to find you, if we want to listen to you, if we want to get more of you, then where are you?
You can find me at It's Jamie's Corner on Instagram. And I will try to, if you message me, I try to go through my messages and find you on there. And if you wanted to check out some of my YouTube, it's just look up Jamie's Corner on YouTube and you can see it on there. And I'm just appreciative to be here and for everybody that listened till the end.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful for you.
Thank you. See you guys.